I mean, what I had essential need for the cloud for the Azure architecture in the backend is, and probably one small lap around the SQL Azure, then probably proceed with the Dallas and high-end technologies which is integrated on Azure. So that was the flow I thought of, but I'm pretty open. I mean, you guys have anything in mind you want me to address? Anything specific you're looking forward? Beginners? First, hello world. Okay, we'll do that. Then I would ask this question. Why are you in this session, by the way, ma'am? Sorry, just to learn, huh? Okay. Anything specific?
Just to see your first Windows Azure application how it will
Work and stuff. Okay. How about you? Black shirt. I like referencing people through their shirt color, and you know that's called call by reference. So. Ported, yes, we already talked about it on the day one. So they are looking for migration. Okay, let's do the migration too. Okay, great. We'll look into it. Any other? Good. Okay. Great. So a little bit of overview of how we are different from our competitors. Okay. Storage options that is available with Windows Azure. Okay. Great. So now I kind of figured out the flow. I'll just make a quick note of it before proceeding. Overview. First app. First migration and data options. SQL Azure. Local storage. And I'll probably speak about X drives also, which is quite new with Windows Azure. Was Dallas. Is it good? Do you want more PPTs or more demos? Cool. Okay. Make my job simpler. But let's start with PPT just to get everybody onto the same pace. Azure, I don't want, because you've been through the last 3 hours, you've been like looking into the cloud computing platform, what's in it for the developers, what's in it for the businesses. So let me not spend much time, but in short, cloud saves a lot of money for businesses. It's very simple. Cloud is very simple. Instead of maintaining your data center, you put it onto the cloud, somebody maintains it for you, you rent out the processors, and you use it. You pay for what you use, and the solution is delivered through internet technologies over the network wire. Okay? What's in it for the developers? It's simple. Today in enterprise world, you guys develop your applications, you give it to the deployment team. And they kind of do the deployment themselves. And basically the developers don't get hold of the real live environment. But with cloud, since, I mean, you have all like one portal to manage your entire application, you can write your own app, deploy it yourself, and service it to the end customers. Deployment is really few clicks. Okay, unlike in normal scenarios where you have hundreds of options in IaaS with ISAPI, filters, etc., the deployment in Windows Azure is really simple. The reason is I had this slide is very simple. I just want to show you the architecture of Windows Azure, because I feel that when you understand the architecture, what goes on in the back end, it's easy for you guys to develop. Okay. So basically, cloud divided into on-premises. I think I'm too loud. Now I'm okay. We have two different varieties. One is on-premises, another is cloud app. And normal scenario, how the Windows Azure app looks like is you have an on-premises app connecting to a cloud app which has the SQL, which connects to the SQL Azure in the backend. And in fact, the on-premises and off-premises integration is done by Service Bus, which is the app fabric. We'll see everything in detail in a while. And this is the architecture of Windows Azure. So I'll take a minute to describe about this architecture because it's very essential. This kind of tells you how the entire flow of the life cycle for the Windows Azure application is. Okay? Programmers use their own the IDE they're comfortable with, which is the Visual Studio, the normal IDE which you guys use today, to code your Windows Azure app. There is no change in the tools. However, there is a small add-on, which is the SDK for Windows Azure. When you install the Windows Azure SDK onto your local machine, you get a Windows Azure emulation layer on your development machine. So you write an app, you can deploy it locally on your local emulator, test it, then directly go ahead and deploy it in the real cloud. Okay? So that's how the SDK helps you. The one other component which is very essential when you use Visual Studio is the tools for Visual Studio, the Azure tools for Visual Studio. It's very simple. It gives you ready-made templates to get started. Your question is, I don't have Visual Studio, I don't have tools for Visual Studio. It's still okay. You can write your app in your notepad, you can still package it with your config files, you can upload it. Visual Studio just gives you a beautification of the XML view configuration, simple. At the same time, you can go into the XML yourself and configure it. Okay? But what I would say is, Visual Studio, okay, that's the second thing, but I would say that the SDK is really essential because that gives you the local emulator, which I'll show you, which is really easy for the developers to get started. So even without internet, even without Azure account, today you want to play with Windows Azure? Yes, it's possible with the Azure SDK. So the life cycle, how the flow goes is very simple. The developer writes his app in .NET in Visual Studio, package it for deployment. Every package consists of two things. One is your app package, your application wrapped and compiled, and another segment is the configuration. The whole story about cloud is very simple, actually. Elasticity and reliability. Elasticity and reliability. Reliability includes redundancy. So these are the two things. So when I say elasticity, today you think that you need n number of resources to run your business. You get n number of resources in cloud. And tomorrow you think n plus m, and you request for n plus m. Tomorrow you require only x, and you request x resources onto the cloud. And you pay only for what you use. Today you need 10 processes, tomorrow 15, day after tomorrow 7. Yes, it's possible for the procurement on the cloud. That's the greatest advantage when you go to cloud. So, which means that developers should be able to specify, or the admin should be able to specify the number of resources that's required for your application. That's configured in the config part of your package. We will rip everything apart, we'll go into the XMLs, and we'll see everything ourselves, but I just want to give you a theoretical overview before we get started. So once you get the package, you push it onto Azure. Second step, this is the deployment. Unlike your on-premises deployment in Azure is really simple, and it's done via a portal. We'll see that. Once the app is pushed to the Azure, the Fabric controller picks up the config file, sees how many processors you need, goes to the processor pool, and provisions the processors for you. In Windows Azure, every role sits on a different core. If you have n roles, it sits on n different cores. So basically, config file goes and procures the core for you. Then it goes to the VHD store and procures the read-only 2008 R2 images, VHD images. And it mounts the VHD images onto the core and starts the machine. I hope everybody are aware of virtualization. Yeah? Yes? Cool. So in virtualization, it's very simple. I mean, you have especially at Microsoft, we have the vPC and virtual server, virtual PC and a virtual server. And it's very simple. The architecture is very simple. You have the VM config file, you have the VHD. VHD is nothing but your hard disk. You mount it on the virtualization layer. runs the PC for you. There comes a PC running on your machine. So this is exactly what happens on Azure. Okay, it takes the read-only VHD, mounts it on a core, runs it. So there goes, at this point, you have, for n roles, you have n different virtual machines running on n different cores in the fabric. You didn't do any provisioning, you didn't configure anything, it's just that you uploaded the package, the fabric controller took the config file, it allocated the entire resource for you, and now it's running for you, n machines. Next step, your package is there, you have VMs running. Okay? Now you want to deploy the application onto the VMs. That's the next stage. So it takes your package, your software package, mounts it on the VM, which is the IIS. In the web role case, in the worker role case, is a simple .NET app. Mounts it on the virtual machine, runs it. Are we done? Is the life cycle done? You have a package, two different components, config, package, fabric controller takes, understands how many cores you need, takes the VHDs, mount it on the cores, run it, you have n virtual machines, and you have your application deployed on the virtual machines. Are we done? You have n different roles. Now, yes, you have deployed the package. You need to configure the load balancer. You need one single pipe to reach out all the resources, right? Here, what happens is you have n different machines and n different applications running. So you have n different endpoints, which is not acceptable. So what Azure does is, it automatically configures the load balancer to reach out to the all n number of resources that you have deployed. Okay, so that you have one endpoint to the external world. Okay, so now after deploying in the VM, it configures the load balancer so that you have endpoint. So you reach out to one URL, and in turn there will be 10 machines running behind the scenes, and Azure would be load balancing your request across 10 virtual machines. In fact, what I really want to stress here is, you didn't do anything, you didn't configure the IIS, you didn't open the configuration of the IIS, enter into complex configurations, which is generally our developers don't like. In fact, I don't like. You didn't access any routers, load balancers. Everything is automatically done. You didn't provision, you didn't take the VHDs mounted, virtualization, you didn't create VMs, nothing you did. Uploaded the package, and Azure took care of end to end. Starting from provisioning to configuring the load balancers to giving you the URL for the clients to access your programs, your software. Great. This is how, I mean, basically, I really took a while to articulate this. The reason is, if you know this, the rest 2.5 hours is going to be really, really simple. Sure.
Does one application runs on one virtual machine?
One role, one virtual machine, yes. So,
Is it not underutilization of the capacity?
so actually, you know, I don't think so, actually. This is how it's been architected. So it's one roles and one virtual machine. And generally, people go for 5 roles for one application. So I don't feel it's not an underutilization. If that is the case, you can refactor your application and put all your logic onto one role, and you can still run it. Oh, role. It's every application. Now we are giving a different jargon called role. Simple, in a simple terms. Windows Azure supports 2 kinds of roles: web role and worker role. I'll map this to the real world. Today, you write ASP.NET application. The front end of an ASP.NET application is web, right? Okay, let's come to the Azure terms. Web role has, those are applications which have web as the front end. So any ASP.NET application is called web role in Azure. Simple. Worker role, any services-based .NET application which don't have a console, that's called worker roles. Simple. So that's web and worker role. It's just the different terms. It's like services and ASP.NET app. And here there was a lot of questions on the day one regarding the resource utilization already. The thing is, now at the moment, Azure's resource, monitoring and everything is apparently manual. So you decide on whether you need a VM or not, extra VM or you can squeeze different roles in the VM, etc. But we have a partner who is doing the elastic resource management with Azure. So I don't know, it's going to be out in a very short while. With that, the resource management is really simple. You switch on the Azure app, automatically that extends, shrinks based on your customer needs. Okay? So is there any other question about compute, deployment, architecture? Testing. Exactly. So the thing is, you don't have to deploy it on the real cloud to do that test. You can use the local SDK emulation to do that test, feature test. However, the the real load test, stress test, I would prefer don't do it on the local emulation, put it on cloud and test it. Feature, it's very simple. You can do it on the local machine, you can have breakpoints, FI, absolutely possible. What kind of special permissions that you need on IaaS? We will see that actually. Actually, you know, when somebody comes and tells, hey, I want to move to cloud, then my first question is, hold on, do you really want to move to cloud? Because I wouldn't recommend certain legacy applications with COM components, those with have like kind of legal problems of moving to cloud. I would say that, hold on, stick to on-premises for now. You don't have to move to cloud because there is an option. Because it's totally understandable, and it's obvious that it's in the cloud and it's in some other data centers, so somebody don't really feel good putting the data onto the third-party data centers. It's like asking you money. Can you give me $500 to me and I'll give it to you tomorrow evening? You don't even know who I am. Would you be comfortable giving it to me? Probably not. So those are free issues. So it's not like every application that needs to move to cloud or can be moved to cloud. Certain restrictions, certain things which are very tightly bound to the local machine. For example, SMTP gateway, we don't support it actually. Because when you see the architecture, everything is a virtual machine, right? And the virtual machines get destroyed and recreated whenever there are issues. These are temporary instances. You cannot run your SMTP gateway on those temporary instances. You cannot store any data, persistent data, onto your roles because it itself is a temporary instance. So there are issues, and we will discuss about it, and things depend on case-to-case basis. Okay? So Azure, this is what exactly I was speaking about. So we have role instances and web roles. It's mounted on IaaS, have the load balancer in front with one endpoint, servicing the customers with single endpoint. Okay? Yes? Hold on the question, I'll answer that. I'll definitely answer that because, in fact, that's the third most requested feature for Windows Azure as of now. Okay? So which also automatically means that you don't have it right now, and I'll tell you why. So storage services. Any enterprise app today needs a front end, and equally important is the storage backend. Windows Azure natively supports 3 data structures. When I say natively, that VMs, which is mounted on the core, that natively supports 3 storage types. One is the tables. I don't want to go more into the tables. Normal entity table, blobs, and queues. Blobs, the limitation is 50 GB, one single file. And queues, of course, I mean, it's a normal queue data structure. And we used it for inter-role communication. You have one role and another role. We used queues to communicate. This was the scene before November. Post-November, something good happened. Microsoft let developers open ports on VMs. So starting November, the architects started thinking differently. They said, okay, let there be a VM. I'll have the application opening up a port, and I'll communicate using the normal TCP or UDP between roles. So today, inter-role communication, two types. One is your normal network communication, and another could be queues. This is really a cool concept. This actually we released it this February, a couple of months back. X Drive is nothing but a blob out there in the cloud. Blobs, as you know, sequence of bits and bytes. What happened? What we did is we partitioned that stream. I mean the sequence of bytes with an NTFS header. What happened was, now there is a drive out. Share my screen. Good. Sorry, it's really messy. So two things that we need to get started is Azure SDK, and the second thing is Azure tools for these are the two things that you need to get started. If you don't have Visual Studio, actually it works with Visual Studio 2008 also. So if you have 2008, 2010, worth trying now. Otherwise, you can go home and download the Express of 2008 or 2010 and start playing with it. Two things needed. So I already have two, obviously, and this is my VS 2010. And how many use 2010? 2010? Cool, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Cool. Rest, 2008? 5, okay. Okay. So you have some questions? Okay. So here we go. What I'll do is, first, shall we do this? Instead of developing a first cloud app, let me create an ASP.NET app and migrate it to Azure. Shall I do this as a first demo? I feel this is the normal scenario which I've encountered in the last 6 months. So this is a very common scenario. Nobody actually kind of started off developing the first app on cloud, to be really honest. So everybody had their existing app, they want to move to cloud. Okay? So let's create an ASP.NET app, and I move to cloud. So here what you have to note is Windows Azure now supports .NET 3.5. Okay? So there is, of course, a backward compatibility, no problem, but if it is 4, you have to think about it. But I guess most of the enterprise don't have the 4 app yet. Anybody having 4 app, .NET 4 app? Okay. So because, I mean, so many enterprises now, even they're very comfortable with 2, and they're slowly starting to move to 3, 3.5. So we felt that this is the appropriate version for cloud. So we are with 3.5 now, of course with backward compatibility. Greater than this, we would be supporting it in future. So here we go, I create my first app. Simple gids ASP app. Okay? So as this goes, let me quickly check if my talent become connected. Good. So what you see here, your normal ASP structure, nothing different. And here we go, the design, and I go. My hard disk is running in full capacity, I don't know why. Hello, simple. Okay. So your normal ASP, no change, opens up a browser, opens up the development server. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, what I've coded is a plain hello world ASP.NET app. Done? Okay. Assume this is your enterprise app. Okay. Now, watch how I port this app to the cloud. Okay. So, as I told you during the start of the session, your whole Azure app consists of two parts. One is your app package, and another is your config file, right? So, I have the app right here. What I lack? The configuration component of Azure. That's all I lack. I'm not touching the app at all now because my app remains the same. So I go ahead, add a new project. So anybody doing along with me? Yes, no? No? Okay. So I go to the cloud. So this is what you get when you install tools for Visual Studio. We can manage, we can hard code, we can create our own XML, but life is much easy with Visual Studio and tools for Visual Studio. So simple kids app. So this is very evident now. You can code in 3 different languages. Okay, one is F# and Visual Studio, and another is Visual C#. And of course, I never used the F# yet. Anybody coding in F#? Just want to know how the experience is. Okay, majority. Anybody in VB? VB? Or all everybody C++ and C#? C#, C++? Cool. Great. So with C#, so here it's asking me for this web project, what are the kind of roles that you want to have? ASP.NET Web role, or MVC roles, or the web service roles? This is the worker. Worker role is not worker role. Actually, there should be worker role listed here. Sorry. No, it's just for the IDE sophistication, to all your namespaces and just for your IDE customization. Of course, nothing so special. So, okay, I want to create an ASP web role, but however, what's the target during the start? I want to migrate my existing app to the cloud, right? So I already have a web role in theory. So I wanted an empty cloud project. What it gives me, so this is my normal app, untouched. This is the cloud component, which you can see in the Solution Explorer. If you see, it consists of 2 things. I mean, this is the configuration part, which I was speaking about. Let me see how these things look like. As I told you, it's a normal XML files. Now I didn't have any configuration, so it's apparently empty. Okay? Okay, so now I have the config component, I have the software package. Now I want to link it. This is exactly what I'm going to do now. Add. Here are the options for me. If I want to add roles, it's asking me whether you want to create a new web role or add the existing component. Add an existing, web component in the same project. So web role in the project, web role project in the solution. So I add the web role projects. It identifies, okay, I have some software package which is pretty much resembles like a web role. So let me add it. There we go. The only change you have is here. I've linked the roles into the config file. Now it's ready. Now it's that I can go for the configuration. So if you see, this is just, this comes with the tools for Microsoft Visual Studio or 2010 as well as 2008. This is just a GUI for the XML. I'll show you the XML directly. There we go. These tags are presented in a much more pleasant format in the GUI, very simple. So let me go into that pleasant format. Here we go. The things that I can configure is .NET Trust level, and this is what? This is where I configure the instance count and the VM size. Okay? And the sizes. So coming back to your question, you asked me, is it an underutilization? We have VMs in 4 different flavors. Okay? If you're going a very simple project, okay, today you want to host your app onto a infrastructure or onto your data center and give it to your customers. What would be the minimum configuration you go for? Dual core? 4 GB. We start from 1.8 GB. So we go from really small sizes to a really extra large size. Okay? And the minimum size is around, it starts from, as I told you, it's 1.7 GB of RAM, and it's I'm bad with remembering numbers. It starts from 2.4 gigahertz of core, I guess. And you can choose a good dual core, you can go until 4 cores, and you can have multiple roles with 4 cores. Okay? So you can start from really basics, you can go to basically an enormous amount. As long as you guys pay for it. Because so these are the sizes that's readily available for one single role. Okay? And this is where I place the instance count. So I'll have the instance count of 2 to start with. So 2 1.7 GB RAM along with one 2.5 gigahertz core. Okay? This is all I have to do to migrate an app. It's done. Okay, let me go ahead and run it. So when I click F5, what really happens is we have the local emulator, as I told you, the Azure emulator. Visual Studio sparks off an instance of the local emulator and deploys the package onto the local emulator. Okay? So as you can see in the bottom, it's the simulation environment is getting started. So this consists of 2 parts again. One is the simulation, the compute simulation, and the storage simulation. Same front end, same experience to the customers, but this is running out of cloud. I'll show you how the cloud emulation looks like. So you have this is the local emulation manager, a kind of computer management console, which is used to manage and monitor the VMs. If you remember, I went to the config file, I created 2 instances that I need to run this app, and there we go, 2 instances. So if my logic here is very simple, I mean, on-stage demo just took a hello world app. But in real enterprise scenarios, there are like complex components interleaved. And when you go for migration, please do refactor your application and evaluate it before deploying it to the end customers. Because sometimes you want to squeeze few logics to the single role. Sometimes you want to break down the logic and put it into few different roles. Okay? This is done, and this would be your Azure development storage emulation. Actually, what this console does is it emulates blobs, queues, and tables. Behind the scenes, it's simple. It uses the SQL storage just for emulation purposes. But out there in the cloud, these are different data structures in a different format. They don't use SQL in the backend. This is just for the development purpose. It uses the SQL in the backend. Okay, so we saw this. We saw the web role giving the same experience as the normal ASP.NET app, and I delivered it to the customer, and it became really, really popular. Okay? Now I want to increase the roles. I want to go to 5 roles. I want to deploy the same hello world on 5 different computers, preceded by the load balancer having 1 endpoint. Okay? It's just increasing the capacity, simple. Let me see how this behaves. Good. There you go. We increase the capacity from 2 to 5 in no time. Yes? Okay. So this was the top-rated feature the need to get feature from Windows Azure. I mean, last November, and in fact, we already are on the way. It's just that I do not know the release time now, right on the stage. But one of our partners in the United States is doing that. The good thing we did is we have a management API for Windows Azure released long back, last July. Management APIs are the APIs used to control the deployment, start, stop, staging, etc. of the VMs. Normal management APIs. We exposed the APIs, but we didn't create that automatic management sheet on top of that management API. So one of our partners are doing that for us. So probably in another couple of months, you would be having that feature where you can specify. It can go from 1 to 10. Based on the need, when the processor, actually you can configure it beautifully. When all the cores reach 80% or more, spin off another new instance. When my RAM reaches 60-70%, spin off another instance. When all my cores are clocking less than 30%, destroy an instance. All this are definitely possible. Management APIs are there. Work is on the way. It's just that I don't know when it's going to be released. And you bet that's one of the it's need to have feature in Windows Azure, yes. It is, yes, absolutely. I think even today, actually, it is possible. It's just that you don't have the ready-made sheet for you to use it. Okay. So there we go. This is the simple migration. And just to I just let you quickly know how to start your first cloud app. In this case, assume you are totally convinced that your first app needs to be on cloud. So in those cases, it's very simple. Cloud Tools, template, choose this template, make sure it is in 3.5. I just leave everything by default for now. Assume I have the worker role. Great, okay. It's going to be, all it does is very simple. It created an ASP.NET app, created the config part of it, just merged it here. This is where we define configuration. Okay, simple, and just for it to, so this is what your debugger question, this is where it goes actually. So it's like yet another .NET program, and this gets deployed on your local emulator. So you can go apparently step by step, breakpoints, watch, or not. Everything can be done right here. Okay. Normal cloud deployed on the local emulator. So this is the story with the basic cloud application. So now, until now, We discussed about the why cloud, what's in it for the business, what's in it for the developers. We spoke about Windows Azure, its architecture, different stages of your Azure, different life cycle, stages in the life cycle of an Azure app. We created a simple ASP.NET app, moved to cloud in your local emulation environment, and we created a new cloud app. Okay? Now, shall we move our second program onto the real cloud? Enough of playing with the local development environment. Assume you're done with your local development, basic feature testing is done. Now you want to deploy it on the real cloud. Let's see how it goes. So it's the lx.azure.microsoft.com. That takes me to the live login page. So the good thing is, for today's demo, actually, when I came here, I was more expecting a lab kind of setup. So I wasn't sure it was going to be a conference site kind of setup. So I got like 10 I think I got 100 Azure accounts that you can use for testing today. So if you guys need, pick it up from me. Okay? And every week we kind of recycle, so make sure that you get it from me, you play around with it, and you kind of leave it, you kind of try it within today, because probably by end of today it might not be available. It's based on US timing, so until tomorrow morning you have time. Okay. It's okay. So actually, just as well, I just sign it. Sign up. So the question is it free? Who says that? Who is that? Oh, actually it's not. And we charge 12 cents per CPU hour. And in fact, I don't know the rest of the billing numbers, but it's really cheap. It's pretty much same with other cloud computing guys also. So we charge in par. Okay, so this is commercial, and I understand your question. This is commercial. However, you're asking me, is there a free limit for the developers to test it? Actually, it's not. I understand how your question comes, because I understand the Google gives you the free limit. But of course, we are asking our development team, or our Azure business team, that, hey, our developers need a free limit. But the talks are on the way, but we haven't reached any conclusion yet. As of now, you need an account to play with Azure. And the account, you can actually, you don't have a free limit like anybody can go log in. However, all MSDN subscribers, if you are an MSDN guy, you have around, we have 750 hours free limit with, I think you have to go through the chart. I don't have it by heart. But yes, you have a free limit, but that's for MSDN customers. If you have an MSDN premium, you have 750 hours. If you have an MSDN basics, you will have some 25, 30 hours of free Azure usage. But I bet that those are really low, and that's only for the development purpose and just to play around with. Because 20, 30 hours is very less, I understand. So this is your Windows Azure portal. Okay? And here's what you create a service. New service. And what I'm doing right now is just deploying it on stage, actually. So this is how, even you go in the back end, the enterprise apps, everybody goes through the same deployment process. It's just a few clicks process. It's asking me whether you should go for storage account or hosted account. We discussed two slides prior, if you remember. One is the web role, worker role slide, which we spoke about, the compute part. The next is the storage part. The storage, if you want the tables, blobs, and queues, you probably need to select the storage account separately. That comes as a separate service. So, gets program. prices. Let's all go and check it out. Azure. Let that get loaded because I'm on my Tata Unicom wireless and it's a little slow. So for you, ma'am, it is 1.75 GB is the minimum, the small VM, and Azure. Yeah, got it. So for your question, yes. So this is what you need to go. This is the promotional offer that we do on Windows Azure. It's the introductory special where you have some free hours every month. But this, I bet that this you won't be. It's not that sufficient that you can give it for your customers and stuff. This is for you, just to get your hands dirty on Windows Azure. But however, we are strongly pushing our development, the whole Azure team that we need the free limit actually, a little large free limit. Actually, thank you for bringing the point because I have to say something. But thank you for giving me the lead. For that, we don't actually. Only Microsoft. At the moment, we have around 6-7 data centers around the world, and in Asia, we have it in China and one in Singapore, and of course in Dublin, South America, North America. So we have few data centers, and of course, only we manage it. Microsoft manages it, and we deliver the services. It's not been outsourced. It's not been. There's no managed hosting for any of the partners. But I don't know. But actually, as time go by, I mean, as few years down the line, probably that might be the situation. We might want to give the managed hosting to somebody. But at the moment, we manage it entirely. So 3 plans. One is the introductory special, which you can play with. There's a free limit. Consumption-based. This is where you give your credit card. And you pay upfront for 12 cents for your every hour usage. MSDN premium account. So when you have an MSDN premium, you get a really large bandwidth, I mean, kind of free limit for you to test. Again, that's for you. That would be sufficient only for you to test, not for your customers, to host their live app for live delivery. Okay, coming to the billing, here we go. So you asked about storage? Who asked about storage? Oh yeah. So that's where the storage transactions. The storage is around 15 cents a GB a month. That's all. It's good that I came early for the previous App Engine session, and in fact, you guys saw the numbers. Even for Twitter, you didn't go for more than 72 GB, right? So if you put the math, it works out really cheaper for you rather than maintaining your own data centers. So, and since we spoke about the billing, we have very strict SLAs. What is SLA? Yeah. So we have a very strict SLA, 99.9. The good thing about, the one thing which I really liked about the Azure SLA is, if we don't meet the SLA, we give huge discounts on billings. Because generally what companies do is, they promise SLAs, but what if it misses SLA? You can go to the court, yes, you have legal right to go to the court, but how many really do it? It's really complex, but here we promise SLAs, and if you miss SLAs, upfront discount on billing. And SQL Azure, it comes $9.99 a month, or that's per GB, and 10 GB it's $99. And rest, you can go to the chart yourself. I bet you know now where to look at. So I will speak about the runtime part in a moment. Thank you for giving me the lead. And before that, we will start the deployment. Test case, let's see the availability. This is the one URL which is going to give people the access to your resources. Okay? This is what the load balancer would hit. I mean, the front end of the load balancer which your request is going to hit. So this is where you can configure where your app needs to be deployed. I spoke about different data centers, right? In Asia, US, Europe. You can choose where do you want to deploy. So I want to deploy it anywhere in US. I'll tell you the reason why I go with US. The reason I go with US is, at the moment, the US costing is much lesser than India costing. And when I first saw this whole pricing chart, the first thing came to my mind was, it is exactly like a postpaid mobile pricing 5 years back. You had free limits, incoming free in night, etc. Likewise, Azure also has a kind of a cool pricing. When you do a data transfer during the data center's nighttime, off-peak times, the data transfer charges are nil. We are not charging you for the data transactions during the off-peak hours. Okay? And there are a lot of clauses and there are good deals in the pricing chart. I'll leave it for you to go and look into it. I go ahead and create the app now. So this is one of the, again, a cool feature which I really liked when I first used Windows Azure. It has the staging and the production live on the portal. The good thing is, you developers can code, compile, publish it onto the staging, where it will be guarded with a URL, a GUID, a complex GUID. So you can test your application on staging. It's basically everything on Azure, everything is same like a production environment. However, you don't have the regular URL, production URL. Okay? So you can deploy it in the staging and you can play around with it until it goes live. Now, since it is basically a simple demo, I'll directly go ahead and deploy it on production. And I guess I didn't compile this. Sorry, publish this. Sorry. Oops. Oh, right. Sorry. So we'll go ahead and publish it once again. So this is what I've been speaking a lot of times. There's two things. If you see the size, that's your app package. And second is the config. Oh, okay. I think I closed the wrong page. So I will go through it once again. So we go to the service, we'll pick up a package to deploy. Cool. Basically, actually, it's a lot faster. I'm just using the wireless, and the wireless is a little flaky here, so it's taking a little while. And one more good thing is, if you are not a GUI type kind of a guy, if you are more like a command line kind of a guy, we have command line tools for deployment also. give one command, click enter, just go away, and it automatically does everything for you. And the management APIs really come in handy. You can build your own console or portal for deployment. So here's the config file. And if you see, there's one more option right here. I just want to spend a minute speaking about that. You can choose your packages stored in your storage account also. Not every time I need to upload it for deployment. For example, your production team may sit overnight. At the end of the day, they can push it onto the storage, cloud storage, and go away home, and you can pick it up from the cloud storage for deployment. You can maintain versions on the cloud storage directly without having to maintain it on your local computer. So this option is really cool, and many enterprises found that this is pretty good. Because once what I did was I deployed MySQL database, the MySQL. I deployed it onto the Windows Azure. MySQL package was around 220 MB, the application package component. So what I did is every time when I upload, it failed. So what I did is I used one of the tools for the cloud storage, and what it does is really cool. It cuts my packages into n number of blocks, upload individual blocks onto the cloud, and stitches it together. There are beautiful tools who does it, and Windows Azure native storage actually supports those kind of stuff, put block, assemble blocks, etc. So I deployed I kind of cut the MySQL package into many pieces, uploaded it to the cloud, stitched it together, and gave the application package, and asked the Azure to pick it up from Azure storage. So when you go for enterprises and when your application becomes really complex, this would really help, but not now for this simple Gits demo. Sure. 5? No. It's by Azure. So that's a great question. So I hope you understand what her question is. She's asking, when I configure 5 instances, will my roles in my application gets exclusive 5 instances, or only 4 and 1 is used for load balancing? No. Load balancing is a separate component which sits at the edge of Azure data centers. When you configure 5 roles, you pay for 5 roles, and your application is mounted on those 5 roles. And load balancer is just yet another component which we have in our data center, which we use it to publish, kind of converge your requests. No. It's totally free. I like this word, totally free, but actually we'll include that cost in the compute cost, but yeah, we don't charge you actually separately. So it's taking a while, and what I'm waiting for you is just to start and probably speak about the other runtimes that we have on Windows Azure. So maybe let it load, and probably I'll start. Sure.
Can we get to see what virtual machines we are using, the IP address, or can we log into the virtual machine?
Actually, okay, there's one more guy who had the same question. We'll hold that for sometimes a little later, because we would definitely come to that point. Storage? Sorry? Okay, so in my case, what I faced the situation practically, so I'll pick that situation up. Windows Azure, they were like, what happened is one day, it was like around last November, Microsoft development people were telling, hey, we started supporting Java runtime, PHP runtime, Python runtime, everything on Azure. So I asked this question that, okay, in that case, can I port MySQL, the entire MySQL database, onto the cloud? So if they boast that Microsoft Windows Azure is scalable, reliable, etc., then my simple question to them was, can I deploy MySQL? Okay, then me and other friends, and of course there was a partner company who joined with us who had the same query, we all said, okay, we'll deploy MySQL onto Windows Azure. And as you know, MySQL is an open source. Okay, so and it also can be compiled for .NET. So we picked up the MySQL source code, compiled it as a worker role, and we uploaded it on Azure. Now tell me how big is the MySQL database? The real database software? It's a complete relational database software, right? It's like yet another SQL server, Oracle. So it was around 220 to 225 MB around. SQL Azure is a different story. What until now we were speaking about is compute Windows Azure. SQL Azure is a different story. We give instances on rent, not the server VMs. It's not a VM. We rent out the instances. There will be a huge SQL server out there maintained by Microsoft, and you will get instances from the SQL server. Okay? So there is a beautiful little warning, and I really want everybody to go through it. When you upload a package, we start charging, whether it runs or not. The reason I stress this point is when you have free limits, when you give credit card, better be careful. When you upload a package, we allocate VMs for you, we provision VMs for you, and the billing starts then. It's not like, oh, I stopped the instance, but Azure did charge me. Let's be careful about that. Because at Microsoft, there are guys who woke up at 2 o'clock in the nightmare and said, my VMs are running. And they went ahead and stopped it. As I showed you in the billing chart, there are inbound and outbound charges, like at another cloud computing, like other competitors also. So it is, as I told you, I'm not so great with memorizing numbers, but you can always go to the search engine, Windows Azure pricing, and you'll get to see the charge. It's inbound charge and outbound charge, yes we have. Just one moment, just 1 second, I'll come. So this is what the portal is, this is how the upload looks like. So your package is now uploaded, ready for deployment. And now actually Azure have started billing me. So let me go ahead and run it. So now what happened is provisioning of VMs have been done. Windows Azure procured n number of cores, created a VM, mounted it. Now it starts the whole VM. Now what happens is the VM will be started, my package will be deployed onto the VM, and my URL will become active. Okay, this is what is happening now. Yes, sir. Oh yeah. Actually, those, yes, we can tweak it around. Actually, optimization of pricing, there are like a number of ways. Like how you guys call your girlfriends during the night times because your nighttime costs are less. So, and for Windows Azure, the night data transfer is nil. So you can, if you have big packages, you can upload it onto Windows Azure storage during the night times. You can have your management APIs, upload everything when you're sleeping. So the next day morning, you just reference it and start your VM pointing to an application which is stored on the cloud. Yes, those are possible. And in fact, I know very less. And in fact, I throw this question to you. You will come up with an n number of brilliant ideas to save cost, especially on Windows Azure. So this is what is happening now. It's initializing. So I'll leave it to initializing. So coming to your question of what are the runtimes that supported. With Windows Azure, initially when we started off with, we were supporting only .NET runtime. But as time went on, we started supporting Java first, Python, PHP, etc. Ruby, did I leave anything? Yeah, that's it. So these are the runtimes supported on Azure. So, and in fact, as I told you, we can deploy a MySQL instance onto the cloud. You can have a Java app or a PHP app running onto the cloud Azure and connecting to a MySQL instance running on Azure. Or you can have a cloud front end on PHP connecting to a MySQL on premises. You have a Ruby or Java program connecting to MySQL. These permutation and combination is absolutely possible. Okay? Oh. It's going to take a while initializing. Sure. My entire project, yes. This is like a domain name. So you have this for throughout your project. In fact, as you move on versions, this will be still static. Absolutely. And in fact, you can have a CNAME which is like abc.com, and you can point out to this .NET, those referencing CNAMEs that can be absolutely done. So you'll have a cool URL, and your customer don't even know that you're running onto the cloud. Your app is running on the cloud. And in fact, of course, the cloud infrastructure is much scalable than your deployment. What they can share or should not? No. I still didn't get actually. The one I deployed it on the emulator. Actually, it's pretty much the same. Same package, everything remains the same. It's just that instead of emulator, you're putting it on the real cloud. Emulator is what like it's apparently real cloud. So procedure, everything is same, pretty much same. But regarding the privilege, one problem which I face, I'm pretty honest here because there's no point in shying away, not telling you all the problems of the cloud. In fact, you should know about it. When I go to the enterprise, they tell me that this is a single portal. And in companies, they wanted a kind of a restricted model for the developers and open model for, the project manager should be able to have control, the deployment team should be able to have better control in this portal, not the developers, etc. That's absolutely achievable. You can integrate this entire portal to AD through ADFS integration. What happens is now I'm logged in with live ID, right? Similarly, you can configure your whole environment, Azure environment, so that you log in with your company ID here. So this is your company portal that can be customized, and you can have a domain service account where you can add your users and you can restrict your privileges and map the domain service account to this portal so that you have a restricted access or lenient access to Windows Azure. Exactly, that's perfectly achievable here. I cannot port that, but you have a similar. You have an account and you can do all similar things on this portal also. Okay? And in fact, for that, a catch is your company should support ADFS integration. Your company ID should be trusted to the live, so that they use your your AD ID to Windows portal, Azure portal. So let's leave this for now and the deployment, let it go on. And we'll quickly speak about the SQL Azure part of things. Okay? So here let me go ahead and first create some database locally. Okay? And before going further, what I'm trying to achieve now is create a database onto the cloud. I was also speaking about the compute part of Windows Azure, where I create VMs, create roles. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a database, a SQL database onto the cloud. And we have a ready-made solution for relational database on the cloud, which is the SQL Azure. Yet another relational database management, relational database solution. The database is, let me not go there. Model master temp DB, I'm going to don't want to use master. So oops, is it right? My resolution issues. Good. So I have the gids here. I'm going to create a table, new table. Be number. That's okay. I apologize for the spelling mistake. And 10. Okay. Table name is edit table. Oops. Edit table this. And sorry, I'm not getting it. How should I add it actually? Sorry? Sorry? Edit. Oh. Oh, with 2000, okay. This is R2. Is it correct? Actually, initially it was just edit, now it is like edit top 200 rows. Anyway, so. Okay, just dummy values. Okay, so I have this table. Now, as everybody see, this is running onto my local machine. In enterprise scenarios, generally, not everybody starts with developing databases from the scratch when it comes to cloud. So you might want to port majority of the times, and you might also have data onto the in your relational database on premises. Let's pick up the same scenario. Assume this is my on-premises machine, and I have this SQL database on my local machine. Now I decided that I want to move to cloud. How am I going to do it? So this would be the SQL with that load, and I have this beautiful migration wizard. Can you hear me? Yeah. So this is the option, analyze and migrate. So I'm going to analyze and migrate SQL database. I don't know what. Thank God. So it's local server. I'm using the local authentication. Actually, migration is really simple with this tool. The experience was really awesome. Why is that I cannot just script my local database and put it on cloud? The reason is very simple. We have few restrictions in SQL Azure, like custom data types and few other restrictions. Oops. I think I need the par also. I'll show you the console of the SQL Server. So this is how SQL Azure. This is how the SQL Azure looks like, where I can go ahead and add my databases and edit my databases there. And of course, every database you create, just watch out, it's $9 per 1 GB. Okay? 9.99 for 1 GB databases. Obviously, when it comes to billing, you can go and check out this Windows Azure billing on the Bing and the first link, it will be the pricing. Good. I think it's because we have multiple networks connected. Anyway, so I was wondering if I can show you the tool. That would be really great, but unfortunately it isn't working. But I'll connect you to the SQL Azure live and I'll show it to you. So this is the SQL administration console. And it's only this much. That's it. If you would have gone ahead and configured SQL, you would be knowing that there are thousands of tabs and hundreds of options in every tab in SQL. But with Windows Azure, the SQL Azure, it's really simple. It's only this much. So I can go ahead and create databases here. 1 GB, 10 gigs. This is all it takes for me to create a database. I think we will not be able to migrate live, but it's very simple. This is called SQL Server Migration Wizard. SQL Server Migration Wizard. This is a Codeplex project, very simple tool, and which automatically scripts the database for you and run it against SQL Azure so that you can port your entire database, including your data, onto SQL in apparently no time. And it is if you want to know, it is the Codeplex project. Okay? So, let's not go over this. And now, when you see there is a temp gets created for me, a database. Okay? Now I'm going to use the Management Studio to log in. I already have the password and everything saved. This time, I might face error because my home is around 20 kilometers from here, and I use the Tata Photon from here. So it might not be in the authenticated range which I have given. Okay, I'll show you where I should configure it. So these are the firewall rules for the SQL Server administration. Not everybody sitting anywhere in this world can just connect to my database just giving the password. Where you sit and where you configure should be in one of the allowed ranges. Yes. Oh, now I think I got the problem of that tool also. Not to allow. See? Your SQL Server configured. GCP. Actually, the error message will be a little different. So this is what I was expecting. Your company. Generally, where do you manage from where would you manage your SQL Server? When I told you, what I meant was, it is a SQL Server management. I'll show you. This is for SQL Server administration. So administration is restricted with the firewall rules, not the database access. Of course, you can get the data from anywhere from the world. It should be like that, right? Yeah. So let me add the firewall rule. So for gets, so 115.117.1 5.117 254. So actually I like this little feature there which will show you your IP address. It's you don't have to go back to your computer, check your IP address and key in there every time. Wonderful. I was expecting this to happen a little long back. Sorry? What if I? Server. I'll just take your question, but before that I'll just key in these values. It's going to take a while, and in the meantime I can take your question. 117.250. Oh. Hope that's not failing now. Yes, sir. Administration restriction or administration restrictions? I mean, access to data, no, it is as long as people are authenticated. See, actually, how do you access the SQL Azure is very simple. The way exactly you were accessing SQL on premises before, exactly the same way you're going to access the SQL Azure also. The one difference is, instead of giving your server name, on-premises server name in the connection string, you will give the SQL Azure server name. In the connection string, everything looks same. So you can restrict them with your own custom connection strings actually. So this isn't happening now, so last time we would try, otherwise so actually when you go to cloud, the majority of your .NET rules, your normal server rules, IIS configuration, everything apply to the cloud program also. It's just that you have your computers running out there in the cloud and you're connecting at Microsoft data centers and you're connecting to it, simple. And you have a beautiful little portal to manage. Other than that, it's your computer, your data center, you can use it like your own. Why is hosting, storage, databases, yourself. But when you go to the SQL Azure, two things to remember: create your databases, set your firewall settings, use your management studio, play around with it as if it's your own SQL server on premises. No change. Okay? So that's all with the SQL Azure. Let's see how far we have gone. So we did an overview of Windows Azure. We did our first app, created our first app. We did our first migration. We discussed about the data options that's available. One is SQL Azure. We did it on practical, and local storage, more I did a theory of the local storage because it's tables, blobs, and queues, and it's normal data structures, nothing so exciting. I mean, nothing so different. It's just that you have the library from Microsoft that gets installed when you use these. When you install the Azure SDK, and you can use the SDK to access the storage, tables, rows, columns, etc. It's very simple. Queues, exactly the same thing. And X drives. This we won't be able to test it now, so I won't be able to demo it right now because we have few exciting things post lunch. So we would probably drop X drives for now, and you can try it out yourself at home. This SDK and in fact, if you want to test X drives, make sure that you install Azure SDK, which is with the February release. the February release of Azure SDK, because that release has the Xdrive APIs. Okay, and it's just yet another APIs where you can store the blob strings. You can treat it as if like it's your own drive connected to your computer with those APIs on your system. Okay, so with this, today it's apparently lunchtime, and we'll break for lunch, and we'll be back at 1:25 Indian time. Okay, so when we are back, we will discuss about Dallas and App Fabric. Just a quick introduction before we leave is, Dallas is information of a service offering from Microsoft. You would have been hearing about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, but this one is really cool. We have gone way ahead, and we have created a platform for information as a service. That's very exciting. And another is App Fabric. When you think about cloud, not everybody moves overnight to cloud computing, onto the cloud. They move on stages. Sometimes they cannot move to cloud because they want to have data onto their on-premises. In those cases, they want to connect on-premises to cloud, right? To maximize your returns on infrastructure investment. In those cases, App Fabric and Access Control List will come to your rescue. You can have your on-premises application connect to SQL Cloud, the cloud app, and you can have or one of the front end in your local on-premises database on the cloud. Mix and match. The hybrid model is possible with App Fabric. So once you're back, we will discuss about the App Fabric information as a service, and the Dallas information as a service, and App Fabric, the hybrid model for cloud and on-premises. See you post lunch. So, robotics, voice recognition, and image recognition concepts, and I managed to put few concepts working at my work, like all integrated react to my needs, understand my needs, and even assist me. Here we go. Demo. Buddy. So basically, Buddy Home is my project, and basically it's very simple. In a nutshell, I've equipped computing at my home, and my home is my buddy. It can recognize me, react to my needs, etc. So you will watch it yourself. So even before I wake up, my buddy or my computer my system, my home wakes up and downloads the daily news updates, my calendar out there from the cloud.
Breakfast time.
And this is my robo arm which can assist me in my cooking. So when I start the cooking, and my arm kind of takes it over from that point. And this is my magazine reading experience at my home. As I read the magazine, my system, my home kind of understands what I'm reading and gives relevant news out there on my screens actually. So I read something about Ravi Venkateshan, and he's not in my LinkedIn network. It's suggesting me if I can add him into my LinkedIn network. And some news about Lalu Prasad Yadav, it identifies it, and some news about the person. This is really cool. It understands that I'm reading something related to IPL.
Really interesting.
And it understands my smile.
Shall I book tickets for you for the next match?
So it kind of understands my smile, and it knows that okay, I'm interested in IPL.
Card, please.
So this is how I kind of book the tickets via the credit card. So it identifies which credit card to use through the
Booking confirmed.
Goes in and books tickets for me. And so this is nothing but the normal software with Microsoft. It's a live meeting, and I have integrated the touchless interface to it.
Able to navigate through the map.
When I was playing with this hand gesture recognition software, it suddenly struck me. If I'm able to recognize hand gestures, won't I be able to speak on behalf of mute people?
How are you?
That's Project Unmute. With Project Unmute, we should be able to give speech to those thousands of people who are challenged with speech.
My buddy home is my home dietitian too.
Good boy.
Kind of, if I eat a high-fat diet, it says that hey, it's not good and stuff. So I have intrusion detection module at home. I'm idle for 10 minutes. Automatically, my
The
intrusion
moment I
detection
leave my house,
module
my
switches
Roomba
on.
gets into action. cleans my house only while I'm away. My buddy home never lets me down. I can sleep peacefully.
So that's my project. So cool. So now time for us to get into some cloud. Okay, so this afternoon post lunch, what we would see is discuss about Dallas, and probably we'll discuss about App Fabric. And Dallas, as I told you, it is an information as a service from Microsoft. Actually, the entire cloud concept is majorly divided into three. One is infrastructure as a service. Second thing is platform as a service, and the third thing is the software as a service. In infrastructure as a service, you don't have to buy the hardware, racks, maintain it, cooling systems, etc. You go ahead and say, hey, I need a rack of service, like what Rackspace does, what Amazon does. So today, in the pre-lunch session, you were asking me about how you guys compare with your competitors. So this is how. So Amazon and Rackspace, majorly, they are into infrastructure as a service. You buy hardware from them, and you can install your Linux or Windows or Solaris, anything you want. So you buy basically you rent out the hardware. That's infrastructure as a service. We guys at Microsoft, we supply platform as a service. First, you don't worry about the hardware. We give you processor cores. We give you the computing power, accompanied with the .NET platform stack. And you can do your development on it, and you can host your software, and you can run. That's platform as a service. In software as a service, you don't worry about your platform, be it Linux, be it Windows, Solaris, you don't care. And you do not care about what hardware it is, what RAM is this. You wanted software, the end delivery. You wanted the screen, the experience, you want to use the software. And you want to deliver it to end people. So that is software as a service. These are the three common flavors of cloud computing. Few months back, Microsoft said, why don't we give information as a service? Today, take the enterprise world. What stuff is? Majority of your application, think about it. You would have spent around 30 to 40% designing your information delivery system. Information data storage is very important for all enterprises. So we decided, okay, we will give information as a service. So we created a platform. It's exactly like Windows Azure. We give you the information delivery system through a single portal. You can tap this information out as atom feeds or raw data XMLs out of the system. And this is controlled by access control list so that you can prevent, you can block the users whom you don't want, you can allow the users to only those of your customers. What's the USP of this? If you ask me, what I would say is, you can also monitor the usage of this data. For example, today you take a geology survey of this entire India, say. You want to publish it, you want to sell it to few people. Okay? In today's world, how do you sell it? If you have the geology data of the entire India, and you have it in a CD, now you want to sell this, you want to make money out of this, you have invested in this whole geology survey. How do you do it? Web. How can I present the data through web? Upload the entire data out, I can load it into Excel, upload the Excel data, give the link to your customer. One way, right? But what happens if he shares the link with other friend? Your data gone? Piracy? Any other way which you can think of today? Web services where you can control, how do you control the usage and how do you monitor the usage? You write your own logic and have a web service. So isn't this the best way to share data? Controlled usage, you can share you can control the people, you can charge, you can monitor the usage, etc. Best way? That's exactly what we do at Dallas. We have the service, we have created the service ourselves, monitored and federated with the access control list, which in turn is federated to your organization, So you can use your own login password from your companies, or you can use the live ID, access the data, get authenticated, access the data, and we will monitor the usage, and we can bill you based on that. So publishing information is really great with Dallas. So here is the catalog which has been published in the Dallas portal. So if you have some cool information and if you think that people will want to use it, will be ready to pay for it, come to us, we will list you in the catalog. Anybody in this world can browse this data and use it. And in turn, this is integrated with the Azure billing framework, so that in turn, right away you can charge your customers for the data access. So here we go. We have some data about Info Group, Info USA, NASA pictures. Metrics, UN data, food and agricultural data. So these are pre-listed into the catalog. What I'll do is I'll go and try subscribing for the US crime data. So I want to know how much of crime happens in the United States. So the data can also be analyzed in 3 different ways in the Dallas, because giving you the platform is one thing, securing it, adding the billing framework, etc. is another thing. The most important thing is the end user experience, right? So speaking about the end user experience, the Dallas gives you 3 different types to view data, which I will walk you through. So before the pre-lunch session, we were just fighting with the firewall rules, and I managed to connect to this local Wi-Fi, and I added this GIDS IP onto the firewall rules. So let me go ahead and check if I can, of course, I mean, I'm just moving tracks. I'll just show you and shift back to Dallas. So let me see if this works out. Yes. So the SQL Azure is out there in the cloud. I have the data. We created a database pre-lunch session, right? And in fact, the problem where we got stuck is the firewall rules were not enabled, so I wasn't able to manage the data from my management studio out there from this computer. Now I added the firewall rules. This is the same management studio you use in the SQL on premises. And note that when you use 2008 R2, which is again free actually, 2008 R2 Management Studio, you can create objects through your Management Studio, like creating tables, etc. When you do not have Management Studio, 2000 SQL Server Management Studio 2008 R2, anything prior to R2, you won't be able to manage the objects through the console. Okay, you can just view them. So it's always good to be updated. You remember we created the database temp GIDS? And of course we didn't create any tables, so there we go. So when you see this, actually, when anybody sees this without this top line, they just cannot guess if this is an on-premises SQL or a cloud SQL. Apparently the experience is pretty much the same. Okay, so that's about the SQL Azure, which we got stuck initially. So this is what did all the trick. I just added the GIDS rule, GIDS IP as an exclusion to manage the SQL. Okay. I'm going to get stuck in a loop, I guess. Well. So we'll first sign in and probably then start browsing the catalog. So as I do this, you guys have any questions? Starting in the morning session, migration, apps, SQL Azure, Dallas introduction. Sure. Uh-huh. So actually it's totally based on your needs actually. It will definitely work. See, actually it's completely based on your need. Sometimes few companies would have signed a deal with your customers stating that your data cannot move out of your premises. Second thing is there might be government policies which will restrict you from moving your data outside. Right? In those cases, we agree, we totally understand your problem, and we say that, hey boss, maintain your data inside your on-premises. But put your front end onto the cloud. Think about putting your front end onto the cloud. Cloud, yes. Absolutely. So you can have a front end on cloud, you can have the services on cloud, you can have the data on premises, you can have a tunnel. The tunnel could be anything. It could be App Fabric also. In App Fabric, you publish, the App Fabric is totally for you if you want the scenario. So it publishes your internal data outside onto any kind of a cloud endpoint, and which is also governed by access control list. So without authentication, people cannot steal your data. So just one moment.